So again, on behalf of Patty and Amy and Andy and me, we want to again express our deepest gratitude to President Trump. Like I said, as a Republican president and a Democratic governor, he didn't have to do this. But President Trump is not a typical politician.
That's right.
He's tough, he's outspoken, he gets things done. He's a problem solver in a business where too many politicians don't want to solve problems. All they want to do is play politics and get nothing done for the people. He's got I'm a Trumpocrat.
The Trumpocrat, that's right.
Are you going to vote for him?
If I have the ability to vote, I'm going to vote for him.
Pardon?
Well, I don't know that they'll allow me to vote, but I'll get into that in a minute. But let me just say that our president is he's tough and outspoken, and he has the courage to challenge the old way.
That's right.
He's the one who's actually fighting to bring real change. That's why he gets so much pushback. But notwithstanding being tough, he's also a man with a kind heart.
That's right.
He sees wrong and he tries to right it, just like he did in the case of Alice Marie Johnson. You know who she is, the grandmother from Alabama who served 21 years in prison on a life sentence as a first-time nonviolent drug offender. A life sentence as a first-time nonviolent drug offender.
First step in
Alice Marie Johnson's case is probably one of the better illustrations that shows how the federal criminal justice system disproportionately discriminates against African Americans and people of color, and how the 1994 crime bill has led to the over-sentencing and to the creation of what the author Michelle Alexander has called the new Jim Crow in America.
That's right.
You know what I'm talking about?
That's right. Dump the Clintons.
1994 crime bill passed by my fellow Democrats before I got to Congress. Fortunately, as soon as President Trump learned of the injustice against Alice Marie, he immediately put a stop to it, and he sent her home to her family. And fortunately, because this is a president who gets things done, through his leadership and with the help of organizations like Cut 50, President Trump was able to build the necessary bipartisan support to pass the historic First Step Act, a new law that begins the process of reforming a broken criminal justice system and putting it into the racist injustice caused by that racist 1994 crime bill.
This is the former governor of Illinois, Rod Blagojevich, gushing over Trump, who just commuted his sentence. He was convicted of wire fraud and conspiracy charges, including for trying to sell Barack Obama's U.S. Senate seat for a personal profit, saying that it's a, quote, valuable thing, you don't just give it away for nothing. He tried to extort a children's hospital by withholding funding until he could extract $50,000 in campaign contributions. And he made false statements to the FBI. He was impeached, the Illinois Senate voted 59-0 to convict him, and he was barred from ever holding office in Illinois again, along with a 14-year prison sentence. And now, thanks to a commuted sentence by Trump, Blagojevich equated his own release from prison for, again, trying to sell a Senate seat and extorting a children's hospital with the struggle of people of color who are disproportionately impacted by a penal system rife with racism and bias. Only Trump could manage to cozy up to a corrupt white politician whose first statement out of prison is to co-opt the plight of black people suffering unfairly in our penal system. Blagojevich even invokes Alice Johnson, a first-time nonviolent drug offender who'd served 21 years behind bars before being granted clemency by Trump. And while, in my opinion, her commutation was a good thing, Trump did it for one of the only reasons that he does anything. He was rewarding a celebrity. Kim Kardashian had intervened to have her sentence commuted by Trump. This wasn't some case that he had been deeply invested in, he was pandering to her audience. And if you don't think so, consider that the guy even cut a Super Bowl commercial broadcast to the biggest audience in television to pat himself on the back for it. Now, credit where it's due, that's not to say that the legislation he signed around the same time, the First Step Act, wasn't important, because it was in fact good legislation that achieved a lot of critical reforms, including reduced prison sentences, earned time credits and good time credits, and defelonization of drug offenses, among other things. And while these are similar to state-level reforms that have passed in recent years, it was a first step, and that is a good thing. Of course, there were 12 votes in the Senate and 23 votes in the House against the bill's passage, and they were all Republicans. So even on the rarest of occasions where Trump does something praiseworthy, his party still managed to blow it and undermine their own achievement. Of course, with that said, Trump doesn't actually care about the prison reform that he passed. Sure, he was happy to tout the accomplishment to pander to some voters, yet when he's not making some calculated move, but instead speaking off the cuff, here's what he'd actually like to model the US criminal law system on.
It's interesting, where you have Singapore, they have very little drug problem. Where you have China, they have very little drug problem. States with a very powerful death penalty on drug dealers don't have a drug problem. if you look throughout the world, the countries with a powerful death penalty with a fair but quick trial, they have very little, if any, drug problem.
So I'm sorry if I'm not giving full credit to the guy bragging about signing a bill that reduces penalties for drug offenders when he undermines that very bill only days later, praising other countries that just outright kill people for the same offenses. And finally, one more point that I think is worth mentioning is that Blagojevich then goes on to say that he'd vote for Trump if he's able to vote. Now, I should note that convicted felons do have the right to vote in Illinois once they've served out their sentence. But what's ironic here is that ending disenfranchisement for felons is an issue that Democrats are championing. Republicans are opposed because it would primarily benefit people of color who vote for Democrats in larger numbers. Although I wouldn't be surprised if suddenly Republicans warm to the idea now that this guy is promising to vote for Trump. The point here is that Blagojevich can try and lump himself in with people who were actually caught up in an unfair system, one steeped in systemic racism, but this entire ordeal does nothing to improve those people's lives. All that happened here was that a corrupt politician was rewarded by Trump. That's it. Blagojevich isn't a victim, and Trump isn't a savior. And if the criminal law system in this country actually worked properly, both of these men would be behind bars.